MetroNews Talkline continues from the AARP broadcast location. We're in the Upper Rotunda, the West Virginia State Capitol. When it comes to cybersecurity, blind trust is a bad idea. CityNet helps businesses avoid risky connections with proactive monitoring, threat detection, and expert local support. Learn more at citynet.net today. Last night, President Trump delivered the State of the Union address. Went an hour and 50 as he hit on hot-button topics such as immigration. Are we any clearer on Iran policy? Question mark. Plus, a couple of West Virginians were honored during the speech as well, the two National Guard members who were shot in that incident earlier this year. With all that, please welcome to the program, friend of the show, Fairmont State University political science professor Robert Bolton joins us on the phone this morning. Robert, good morning. We appreciate you taking some time.
Good morning, Dave. Always glad to be on.
What were the high points for you out of the president's speech last night?
There were two really high points for me. One was the helicopter pilot who won the Medal of Honor and was awarded it during the State of the Union. And the other was the general temperature of the environment last night, where you saw pretty regularly one side of Congress applauding vigorously President Trump's statements, and then complete silence from the other half of the United States Congress. And I think that's a show of just how polarizing a figure President Trump is in this modern political climate.
Robert, good morning. I want to refer to a point in the speech, and I'm paraphrasing here. The president asked members of Congress to stand up if you agree with the following statement. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. The wide shot of the camera showed Republicans standing, showed Democrats sitting down, Trump shaking his head at the podium, and I believe, perhaps rivaled only by the hockey moment, it got the longest applause of the night. You remember a president in modern times ever doing anything like that, and what do you take away politically from that maneuver last night?
I am hard-pressed to recall any occasion that has been as divisive as that. I do remember early in President Obama's first term where you had the congressman from South Carolina, Joe Wilson, saying, "You lie," directly to the president, and that was seen as a huge breach of protocol at the time. And by today's standards, that seems downright civil. I think that really it says two things. One, I guarantee you that there will be at least one Democratic congressman in this election cycle where there will be footage of them sitting while that line is being uttered, probably in a border state where illegal immigration is a hot topic issue. And then the other thing is I think the Democrats had the attitude of that old line from Abraham Lincoln, you never wrestle with a pig in the mud because you end up dirty and the pig likes it. So they didn't want to be perceived as agreeing with the president, but at the same time they were in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because being perceived as too supportive of illegal immigration versus the interest of American citizens leaves them in a very awkward position.
And we're joined by Robert Bolton, Fairmont State University political science professor, and I hesitate to use the word that's the genius of Trump, but this is where he excels as a politician. He knew they were in a tight spot. He knew that Democrats were in a danged if you don't, danged if you do position. That's why he put that out there, Robert. That is part of what has made him successful as a politician, is to recognize those moments and then pounce on them.
I don't. There are many things that Republicans and Democrats disagree on, but I do think one thing they can agree on is that Donald Trump is probably the best trash talker or the best troller that you've ever encountered in the Oval Office.
If you're MAGA, you're happy last night. There are a lot of things for you to jump on board with, and look, every State of the Union is somewhat a pep rally, no matter who holds the office. Democrats obviously unsatisfied. Last night's speech as a referendum on the president in the upcoming midterms, when it comes to independent voters, what do you think they walked away thinking last night?
Well, there were issues that were discussed that were red meat for Trump's base. The transgender issue, illegal immigration, our foreign excursions abroad in Iran and Venezuela. But the things that most voters go on the bread and butter issues of how am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to put food on the table? How are my schools doing for my children? I was surprised that Trump did not talk on those very long. Yes, he did talk about the price of eggs and beef going down and the price of gasoline, but he didn't. Haven't looked at any percentage of how long that was in his speech. Those topics were how long he devoted to those. But I do know it was a very short period of time. And I think Trump knows right now, even if he feels that his policies, including with tariffs, will in the long term benefit the American public, right now we're going through some growing pains or some discomfort. Certainly the polls are showing that his approval rating has taken a hit, and overall voter confidence in his ability to handle the economy has declined from November of 2024. So I think the fact that of what Trump did not linger on is much more telling of where his concerns are for the midterm election than what he did rally around.
Robert Bolton joining us, Fairmont State University political science professor. Among the awkward moments of the night, President Trump, you mentioned the tariffs, brought up the tariffs. He doubles down on those, expressed his displeasure with the Supreme Court's decision. What Supreme Court justices in the room sitting right there in front of him? What did you make of that?
It was very interesting. First of all, it's notable because I remember even during George W. Bush's presidency, it wasn't uncommon to see 7, 8, maybe all 9 of the Supreme Court justices. Last night, the only justices who were there were Amy Coney Barrett, Elena Kagan, John Roberts, and then trying to remember who was the other one, but there were
Kavanaugh.
4 of them. Yeah, yes, that's it. Yes, Brett Kavanaugh. And they cut to, or at least on C-SPAN, they cut to John Roberts' face when President Trump decried the tariff decision, and it looked like John Roberts had been gut punched. Now, the justices have a strong policy of agreeing or disagreeing with the president. They never applaud, but I thought that was very interesting that Trump, directly to their faces, basically was extremely critical of them. And it's also probably a good indication of why the Supreme Court would probably be better served if they did not attend in the future, because it's a very untenable position for them, regardless of who is in the White House.
Democratic response last night, Robert. First off, hugely disadvantaged because you have to go second. More than that, Trump spoke for 2 hours, so people are turning in. They're not paying attention, I would dare say. But I'm curious, any thoughts you might have on the Democratic response and how it played?
They're almost always in an impossible position, regardless of your political persuasion, when you're replying. Last night, it was Governor Abigail Spanberger of Virginia. And I didn't really have a strong impression in regard to hers. They have to prepare their speeches beforehand, so I can't really say that it left any lasting impact. And to be blunt with you, it was so late in the evening, even if it was the best response ever. I know my wife fell asleep beside me when I was in the middle of watching. I think she made it 45 minutes into it, so I think most Americans did not stick around to watch the response afterward.
Let's read way too much into it, because that's what we like to do here, Robert. The response, Abigail Spanberger, she was marketed as a moderate in Virginia, a moderate Democrat. What should I make that they picked her to deliver the response last night?
I think it says a huge amount. Virginia, even though it has tilted blue since the 2008 presidential election, roughly, it is still in many ways a swing state. It will regularly elect Republican or Democratic governors. And even in this last election, although she won by a decent margin, it wasn't a blowout election win for her. I think the Democrats did a lot of soul-searching after the 2024 election. And while I think the 2024 election was largely lost over economic issues and the perception that Joe Biden was too old and Kamala Harris was a last-minute replacement, I do think that those cultural issues did play a part. And I think Trump, more than most politicians, recognizes those cultural issues are part of the magnetic appeal of him. And the Democrats are going to be very, very wary focusing on cultural issues during the 2026 election, midterm elections. If they are smart, they're going to campaign primarily on economic issues and how the average voter perceives their own household doing. Most voters, as James Carville once said, all politics is local. It's the economy, stupid. You have to focus on those issues that impact people's day-to-day lives. It's not the cultural issues that matter as much. So if you're perceived as moderate, you're not perceived as being a left-wing loon, that's going to be the more reasonable voice that will make many of those middle-class, moderate voters vote Democratic come 2026 in November rather than Republican.
Robert, I can't help myself. Last night, I moved to think about 2028, and I couldn't help to juxtapose Marco Rubio against J.D. Vance, watching them both come into the chamber, watching Vance and his mannerisms, watching Rubio when he caught the camera. I'm wondering if you were doing the same thing, and not to be a spoiler, but Rubio looked a little more presidential, at least to me.
You know, it's interesting, TJ, because I thought that overall J.D. Vance looked pretty confident when he was listening to Trump's speech. The few moments that I saw the camera cut to Marco Rubio, particularly during the Iran strikes and then during the Venezuela seizure of Nicolas Maduro, I thought he looked kind of uncomfortable myself. There was that Vanity Fair article that came out a few weeks ago where Trump basically said at this point that he expects J.D. Vance will be his successor, and he said he would like to see a Vance-Rubio ticket in 2028. Now, will that happen? I don't know. If that Vanity Fair article is correct, Rubio said that he would not run against Vance. Now, 2.5 years is a lifetime in politics, but it will be interesting to see. Rubio is undoubtedly a very smart man. He clearly has presidential ambitions. Notably, he ran against Trump in 2016 and did not do very well in the primaries. But it'll be interesting to see how 2028, because we're going to really, especially after the midterms, pretty much the day after the November elections this year, you're going to seriously see movement from the people who are planning a run in 2028. And by early 2027, you will see many people formally declare their presidential campaigns.
Robert Bolton, Fairmont State University political science professor, friend of the show. Always appreciate the perspectives. Thank you, Robert.
Always glad to be on, Dave and TJ. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're back to the Capitol in a moment. This is Talkline from the AARP broadcast location.